Next up here on 99.9 The Fan, Paul Ihander here, Graham Hill aside me, and joined by Carolina Hurricanes head coach Rod Brind'Amour. Coach, thanks for taking the time with us to hang out with us today. And I want to talk to you first about time. How much time did you let yourself have between the closeout of the New Jersey Devils and when you started watching tape of either Washington or Montreal?
Well, you try to enjoy it a little. I tell the guys you get caught up in moving on a little too quickly sometimes, and that was I thought a pretty well, it was just an incredible game the other night and the way to wrap it up. And so you want to enjoy it a little bit, not knowing who we were playing at that time. So you're kind of we know Washington. We played them enough, and we played them actually the last couple of games toward the end of the season. So there's no real secrets there, and obviously that's who we're playing. So we dove into it pretty well here the last yesterday for sure. And now we're about we still don't know when we're playing. We have an idea, so we're ready to go though whenever they tell us.
Carolina Hurricanes head coach Rod Brind'Amour joining us this morning on Next Up alongside Paul Ihander. I'm Graham Hill, and Coach Brind'Amour, I just want to go back to game one. And after that first period, I'm curious, what's said in the locker room, or does anything even need to be said at all?
Well, we had a couple. Game one, the first period wasn't great. Obviously, the other night it wasn't great. A lot of times you don't really have to say much, right? Like the other night, I didn't have to say too much. It's pretty obvious what's going on. Sometimes the games, if you're only down one, or even if it's even if you're up one, you might not be playing well, and you got to get on it. So it's a feel. My group, I kind of know. They know. I didn't have to say much. We just kind of try to get refocused, right? It's all about what's done is done now. Let's chip away and try to find a way to get back in the game. I mean, it's we still have 2 periods to go, so even getting one back and giving yourself a chance, that's really all we needed to do. And I give the guys a ton of credit because we got back within 6 minutes and had it tied up. So you don't expect that every time, but I know we're capable of it. So and they do too, and that's the important thing.
Coach, you talk about running the race. You talked about it in the locker room post win there in Game 5. Every 20 minutes, every game, singles and things like that. So, how do you, as a coach and your staff, translate the momentum of a gentleman's sweep into this next round?
I don't know. I think it's really just about kind of taking what we know, what was successful. That's our game, and making sure that that's what we bring every night. And then we always say the score is going to take care of itself. I mean, you just got to play a certain way and give yourself that chance to win every night. And when we do that as a group, that's when we're successful. And they know it. And it's, but sometimes you need to be gently reminded. And sometimes it's maybe not so gently reminded. But that's human nature, right? So it's not an easy game the way we play it. We ask a lot of our guys, like every second of every shift. It's they're laying it out there, and that's I think the way we have to do it to be successful.
And of course, your top players really stepped up in key moments throughout that first round series. How would you assess the impact of guys like Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, and even though he was absent for Game 5, Freddie Anderson in the first 4 games?
Wow, you got to have those guys, and every team has their so-called star players or guys that certainly get the opportunity to be that, and so with more responsibility comes a little more expectation. I mean, that's just how it is. So we know the guys you mentioned, if they're not, listen, if we're winning hockey games, you're going to hear those guys' names in some form or fashion, are going to be the reason or certainly had a hand in it. And obviously the goalie has probably the biggest hand in it. The nature of that position, and Freddie was good when he was there, and hopefully he'll be back for the next series because that's the most important position.
Hey, Coach Rod Brind'Amour joining us here. Next up here on 99.9 The Fan, Paul Ihander, Graham Hill. Coach, as you start moving forward and you start game planning for Washington, obviously there's that offensive threat that comes with the Capitals. They play a little heavier of a game. I like to call Alex Ovechkin on the power play kind of like the expected comet, right? It's always going to come skating right through the middle of that offensive zone, and he's just looking for his moments. So how do you, after such a stellar kind of special teams play here in that series against New Jersey, how do you battle that? You said you've seen them before, so what's the key in locking a guy like that down?
Well, I mean, if you knew that, it would have been done a long time ago. Because, like you said,
Okay,
he's probably
okay.
literally one of the most predictable players on the planet, right? But nobody stopped him. He's sitting over there. He's got the one timer, and for whatever reason, well, I know the reason. He's good. He's elite, and he can just get it off. He can get it through people. He has an unbelievable ability. Just they go in the net. They go through goalies or they go around. Like, it's just that's there's a reason he's the greatest goal scorer of all time. And it's like I said, it's there. You still can't stop it. You can stick a guy on him. You can stick him standing right beside him, and he still finds a way to get it through and to the net. So, that's there, obviously. Then they have other weapons too now. So it makes it, obviously, there's a reason I think they had, the second best record in the league all year, or right up there all year. So, they have other pieces, and that's what good teams do have. So to answer your question,
Coach Rod,
there's no real way to shut it down. It's, we
Yep.
know it's there.
Hey.
Let's not make it be too much of an influence, I guess, is the way to look at it.
Coach Rod, as you mentioned, no schedule has been set in stone just yet for your second round series against the Capitals. We might have a good idea, but until the league announces it. So, as a former player coming off a Game 5 situation, how do you balance the kind of sitting around watching your next opponent while also trying to stay in game shape for when that series does start?
Yeah. Well, we give them a little time, mental rest. We weren't on the ice here today either, but they got their work in. I mean, staying sharp, but also you need to get away. Like, they needed the mental break, because once we start, what's really be tomorrow for us, it's on, and it's we expect full attention and mental focus, and all that, and obviously during the game you ramp up both mentally and physically. So it's a grind, and it's we're only one of whatever it was. It's the first race we got. It's still a month and a half to go if you want to go all the way. Like, it's crazy how hard this is. It's why it's the hardest thing to win, but it's also the most rewarding. So we know that, and we're staying focused on one game at a time. But you definitely have to, like you said, understand we need time to rest mentally and physically, and know when to turn it on.
Certainly undeniable. And as a head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, you're scrutinized for when you're able to turn it on, when you're able to turn it off. You take the heat when you do something wrong or make the wrong decision, but you also deserve praise for the choices that you make and you and your staff make. And I tip my cap to you for inserting Mark Jankowski into a lineup to where the Devils were playing incredibly heavy against you. Is that something that you had anticipated, making sure that he was going to get some ice time, or is that just out of necessity after that Game 3 where you were thinking, man, we could use just a little bit more weight out there?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's not even really that. I just felt like, number one, I didn't want to take him out, period. But it was literally the start of the playoffs was our first time all year where we had all our healthy forwards. Like, it was just a weird the way it all timed up. And Will Carrier came back, and a couple other, then we rested guys. So all of a sudden now we're fully healthy, and I'm looking around going, well, who comes out? It's hard for me to have Roslovich out of the lineup. He's got 22 goals during the regular season, and he's the right-handed center, and and he's great on the power play, and it's just, there's all these things that it's like, well, you can't take this guy out, and then who comes out next? And so Janker, since he showed up, has just been lights out. So I was looking for a way to get him in. It might be somebody else comes out, because I do think Rostovich can help us with the speed and the scoring touch that he has, and so I hate having that out of the lineup. But to your point, Jankowski's been great, and he has been since I put him in, and I don't anticipate that changing.
Coach Rod, speaking of other players that have been solid for your group, of course, Taylor Hall, it was announced yesterday by the team that he has a 3-year extension. I'm just curious, what has he brought to your team since arriving, both on and off the ice, and what made him a priority to try and keep him in Raleigh?
Well, what made the priority, that's the management's decision there. But on that, I think the key to your first point is why was he or has done a good job, and that is he stepped in here and he's brought listen, that's a veteran player with all the pedigree in the world, clearly, and yet he's kind of come in and said, you know what, it's about the team. I want to win. I'm going to do whatever you need. And when you see that, that's when you know you're cooking, because you got a guy who we know has the ability to. Have you seen it? He's got some end-to-end rushes in him. He's got this unique talent that at any time can make something happen, but he's also willing to try to figure out how to best fit in with our group and play the way we need to be played to win. And that made an easy decision to be like, okay, listen, this is the kind of guy we want around. And I think at this point in his career, it's more about winning. And that's, again, you can't have enough of the kind of guys thinking like that have that pedigree.
Final question for Rod Brind'Amour joining us this morning on Next Up. With so much familiarity between the two teams, do you anticipate this upcoming series against the Capitals being more physical, more tactical, a little bit of a mixture of both?
Well, it's gonna listen. It better be physical because I know, that's playoff hockey. So that's gonna be there. They have obviously some guys that do that very, very well. So I have to anticipate that's coming because we're gonna bring that element. I mean, that's part of it too, is finishing checks, and we were very, very good about that in the Jersey series. So don't anticipate that changing. I'm sure the game will start. There'll be certain things, but both teams understand that what's too much at stake. There's too much to win and lose, if you know what I mean, on certain things. So I don't think you'll see anybody going too far outside the lines because that's the difference between winning and losing. Special teams always come up huge in the playoffs. So we certainly don't want to be doing any extracurricular stuff that causes us to get penalties. That is not going to be a recipe for success. So, we'll see how the game goes. I think that what's good about our group is we're really able to adapt. I find that whatever the way the game goes, we've been just ready to, okay, if it's going to be a little bit, more physical, we can answer that bell. And if it's more up and down and whatever style is there, our guys are able to, adapt to it and excel in it.
Certainly no lack of fight in your team, Coach. Head coach Rod Brind'Amour, the Carolina Hurricanes, here on Next Up. Coach, we appreciate your time, and we wish you good luck in the upcoming series.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.